Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I want to give you a rundown of the rules for the Alexis solo mode for Welcome to. I've already done a how to solo tutorial for the basic version of the solo game, the one that comes in the box, and I want to show you how to incorporate Alexis into that game because I really think it is a big improvement to a game that was already really good. Just like in the regular solo game, you're going to set up your construction card deck, put out 3 projects, and have your scoring sheet ready to go. And if you want to see the solo game in play, I have linked my other playthrough in the show notes. However, you're going to be splitting all of your score boxes in half because some of these points are going to be for you and some are going to be for the architects that you battle in the Alexis solo mode. The last part of setup is very easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take these project cards that are for the Alexis solo mode, and you're going to shuffle them into the bottom half of the deck. So just split the deck in 2, shuffle them into the bottom, replace the bottom half of the deck, and then put the part with no project cards in it back on top. That means you won't be seeing any of those project cards until you've gone about halfway through the deck. I'll talk about how to score them in just a moment. Now let's take a look at our opponents. You have difficulty levels of 1 through 6. These are double-sided, I'll show you in a moment. And then you also have some extra opponents thrown in based on people who contributed to the design of the game. Someone like this guy at level 1 with his drink and his hat is going to have a lower base score than someone who is on a higher level. So here we have 1, but all the cards are reversible. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the 4 through 6 opponents are really going to put up a fight, as will these bonus opponents who have some interesting combinations of how they score. Let's just grab our easy opponent for now, and I'm going to show you how scoring for him works. So how's our opponent going to get points, you might ask? Well, we're going to give them to him. So in a normal solo game of Welcome to, and this is going to work basically the same way, you draw the top 3 cards from the construction deck. You're going to choose one for its number that you're going to write on one of your streets, but you're going to choose a second one for its effect. So in this case, we'd have a choice between a 6, a 2, and an 8. And we also have 2 pools and a real estate agent. So once we've chosen one number and one effect, the third card, let's say that we decide to give him the 8 pool, is going to go to the discard over here. It's going to go to our opponent. In a game against Alexis, you never shuffle your discard. You can look at it at any time, but you cannot shuffle it. And this is going to form the neighborhood that our opponent is building throughout the game. He's going to get points depending on what we give him. So for every pool card that is in the discard pile at the end, he's going to get 1 point. He'll also get 1 point for every park card we give him. He'll get 1 point for every temp agency card that we give him, and he'll get 1 point for every fence that we give him. And if you look through the other opponents, you can see there are varying numbers for this. So some of our opponents will get more points for pools, fewer points for parks. It just depends on who you decided to play against. So it makes your discard pile go from something that's just thrown away to something that's fraught with danger because it can make you lose the game. So most of the points that the Alexis solo mode accumulates throughout the game are the points that you give it by discarding cards. Most of them just have a base value, such as the parks, pools, temp agencies, and fences. Although if the discard pile for Alexis has the most temp agency workers, it will also get the 7-point bonus that the player who has the most of those gets at the end of a normal game of Welcome to. So they get a base value for every temp agency card that they get, that you discard, but they can also beat you on the challenge for who uses the temp agency the most times. So that's another thing to think about. What's interesting, however, is that these last 2 cards score differently, and I'm going to show you how that works because it was the most confusing part of the solo mode for me. To make everything easier to see, I've just used a small strip of cards instead of an entire game's worth of discards because I really want to make sure that I'm clear about how this works. So at the end of the game, you're going to lay out the entire discard pile for Alexis in order. Don't shuffle it, don't change anything, because the order actually matters. When you calculate the score, it's assumed that there are fences on both ends of Alexis's discard pile. So they automatically have at least one enormous estate, depending on how many fences you give them throughout the game. However, they're going to score points for their 5 largest estates in addition to the base values of the cards. So what we'd have here is for pools, we'd have 1, 2 points. For parks, we'd have 1 point. For temp agencies, we'd have 1, 2, and then maybe a bonus. For the fences, we'd have 1, 2 points just for the number of fences. But here's where things get exciting. What the BIS does is the BIS does not score points in itself. What it does is it scores points within estates that you get from your discard pile, which is then Alexis's card pile. So what a BIS does is it has a multiplier on it that tells you how many houses exactly it is worth. The base value of houses in an estate for Alexis is 1 point per house. However, those values are affected by BIS and by the real estate agent. The reason for this is that BIS increases the number of houses in an estate. So instead of being worth 1, 2, 3 points, this estate is actually worth 1, 2, 3, 4 points because a BIS card is worth 2. If we were playing against this lovely lady lounging by the pool, this BIS would then be worth 3 houses, meaning that this estate with an assumed fence over here and a definite fence over here would be worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So depending on the challenge of your opponent, they are going to score like crazy for the houses and BIS cards and everything that you put into the discard pile. And of course, BIS is the card that is the most fraught in the game, which means that discarding them is good for you in terms of your construction, but then terrible for you in terms of what it gives to your opponent. The other special card over here is this real estate agency. So I'm going to show you how that one works as well. Over here in this estate, which is bound by these 2 fences, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses. In other words, you have 5 cards. There are 2 real estate agencies in here, but that does not matter. Only one is going to be a multiplier. However, because this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 household, you then multiply those 5 points by 2 because the value of the real estate agent is 2. So instead of being worth 5 points, this estate becomes worth 10. If there were also a BIS card in here, so let's just see how that would work. If you also had this BIS card in here, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 houses in there because the BIS counts as 2 houses. And then you multiply 7 by 2 for a total of 14 points. So if you do not control your discard pile, it is really easy for Alexis to rack up a lot of points on you, especially if you're playing against more challenging opponents, because 2 is not always the only multiplier for a real estate agent that you have. This one, the most difficult opponent for Alexis, multiplies the value of each house in the estate by 4. The other key thing to understand for the Alexis solo mode for Welcome To is how projects work. So the project cards that are hanging out in the deck are there so that you can decide whether the Alexis mode is going to score for a project and which project is going to score for. So the game does not make this that easy on you. Even though the project cards are shuffled into the bottom half of the deck, the moment that a project card appears and someone resolves it, including you, so if I'm partway through the deck and I finish a project and get it approved by the city, then I take my entire discard deck and shuffle it back into the main pile. What that's going to do is have the effect of pushing some of the project cards further up towards the top, making it more likely that we're going to draw them and that the Alexis solo mode is going to have a chance to score for them. So in your first play with Alexis, do not forget that the moment you finish a project, even if no project cards have come up yet, you have to shuffle your discard back into the construction pile to get those project cards shuffled differently and therefore more likely to be drawn. The other interesting thing about the project cards, however, is how they're scored when they come up. Let's just assume that, oh wow, I didn't do this on purpose to show you at all. A project card, look. So when a project card is drawn, you go ahead and put it down and draw the 3rd card. So this is going to be the hand we're going to work off of. But you're also going to decide whether the Alexis solo mode is going to score for that project. So in this case, this is the first project card that has come up out of the deck. So it says number 2. What we're dealing with here is whether Alexis is going to score for projects depending on what order they come out of the deck. So the first project card you draw, whether it's numbered 1, 2, or 3, is not going to score. The second project card you draw, Alexis won't score for that one either. But the third one you draw, regardless of whether it's 1, 2, or 3, is going to be a project that they score for. If they get it before you, they get the full amount of points. If they get it second, they get the secondary number of points on the cards. So when you draw project cards, for example, this one, I know that the Alexis solo mode is not going to score for project number 2 because it's the first project card that I've drawn from the deck. Whatever the second one I draw will also be one that they don't score for. If I manage to finish the game before the third project card is drawn, the 3 regular endgame rules for Welcome to remain in place. So somebody completes all 3 projects, somebody fills up all of their houses with numbers, or somebody gets a building permit rejected 3 times. And in this case, it will be you because Alexis's building permits are never rejected. The only other change for solo is that the game will end if the construction deck runs out. So once you've shuffled your discard back in and moved those project cards around, the game either ends in one of the normal ways or when you run out of cards, because once you've run out, you've basically distributed a fair number of cards to Alexis and it's time to just see who scored better. So what I have here is a distribution of cards from the construction deck that are laid out in exactly the way that the score explanation cards are done on the rule sheet for the Alexis solo mode from the publisher, so that we can talk through how it's scored and I can actually point things out to you so you can see how it works. And we're assuming that they're using opponent 1 for now. So we're going to assume that this guy didn't get any points for plans because he wouldn't have scored for the first card that came out, nor for the second. And let's assume that we made all 3 plans before one of them was drawn. So he would have scored for it if we'd drawn it, but then we didn't. So too bad. So now we're going to actually count through all of his cards. So he didn't get any plan points, but let's see how many park points he's going to get. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parks. So it's going to be a total of 6 points for parks. Then you look at the pools. He got 1, 2 points for pools. There were only 2 pools, so he's up to 8 points at this point. Now let's look at the temp workers. He's only got 2 of them. Let's say that that was either tied for the majority of the majority. So he would get 7 points for that because that's the normal bonus in the game. He's also going to get 2 points, 1 point for each of the temp agency workers. So that puts him at a total of 9 points for temp workers, which puts him at 17 points overall. He also gets 1 point per fence, which puts us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points for the fences. So we have points for the pools, points for the parks, points for the fences, and points for the temp workers. Here's where things get a little bit wild. There are going to be 6 estates in this suburb. You assume that there's a fence over here. So this is going to be 1, and then there's a fence. 2, another fence. 3, fence. 4, fence. 5, fence. And then this is a big one, 6, and then the fence. So there are 6 total sections of houses that are blocked off by fences on both sides. What he's going to score for is the top 5 ones. So what he's going to score for is the top 5 most valuable estates in terms of points. So we can pretty much assume that this one's going to be the one that doesn't count, but we're going to talk about what they're all worth. This one over here is only worth 2 points. It has 2 houses with no BIS or real estate cards, so it's just going to be 1, 2. That's it, 2 points. This one is going to be the same, 1, 2, nothing else, because you have a fence on either side. And then there's 2 cards. Houses have a base value of 1 point each. So 2, 2. Then in here, we have 3 houses because there are 3 cards between the fences. But we also have a real estate agent in here. There are 3 of them, but you only really do the multiplier 1 time, so that doesn't matter. There's 3 cards in here with a real estate agent. That's going to double the number. So 3 times 2 is 6. So this is worth 6 points. Here we have 3 houses, but these are special in a different way. So this is 1, 2, and because of the BIS, which is worth 2 houses, it's actually 4 houses. And those 4 houses are multiplied by the real estate agent for 2, meaning the estate is worth 8 points. Because it's not 3 houses, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 houses. And then this multiplies everything by 2 for 8 points. This one's only worth 1 point. It's 1 house between 2 fences. And then we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 card estate with a real estate agent. So 7 times 2 is 14. So that means that you're going to give him points for the 14-point house. We'll skip this one. 8, 6, 2, and 2. So his total number of points for the whole game would have been about 55, which seems low. But when you play with more difficult opponents, or if you let the estates get out of hand, those points can multiply really, really fast. I hope that this little walkthrough was helpful because I think that the Alexis solo mode really enhances a game of Welcome To, even in ways that the multiplayer game can't. By making your discard pile something that really matters, the solo mode really pumps up the game and gives you an extra decision to make every turn, which makes the game even more fun to play because your choices get harder and they get more interesting. Also, at higher levels, the Alexis solo mode is brutal, and it's really fun to have opponents that challenge you to play a little bit differently because they get different point values based on getting different kinds of cards. And it's fun to set yourself goals such as beating really tough solo opponents that are probably better than anybody that you're going to meet in real multiplayer game life. So I definitely recommend that you give the Alexis solo mode a shot, and I hope that this little guide to the rules for it was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe to this channel. If you really liked it, feel free to leave me a coffee at the link below. And either way, I hope I see you again soon. Happy gaming.